Greetings, Japan fans. Today's show, we're going to talk about opportunities. Baishu, arigatou gozaimasu. And welcome back to the 11th year of the Leadership Japan series. I'm your host in Tokyo, Dr. Greg Story, Dale Carnegie Tokyo franchise owner, president of Dale Carnegie Tokyo Training, and the 3-time best-selling author of Japan Sales Mastery, which is Zaegyo in Japanese, Japan Business Mastery, and Japan Presentations Mastery, or in Japanese, Anata mo Prezen no Tachiden. My other books include Stop Wasting Money on Training, which in Japanese is Training de Okane o Muri ni suru no wa yamimashou. And my just released new book is Japan Leadership Mastery, and all are available on Amazon. This podcast brings insights, examples, and experience about leading in Japan. Trust me, it is different here. Don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast with your family, friends, and colleagues. We're not being sponsored by Libsyn, but we value your privacy, which is why we have our podcast hosted by Libsyn. Unlike many other hosting organizations, Libsyn have a strict policy that does not allow access to your private information by anyone. Here is our daily podcast lineup on Apple Podcasts. Mondays, the Cutting Edge Japan Business Show podcast. Tuesday, the Presentation Japan series. Every second Tuesday, the Business Tatsujin no Oshie Show. Wednesdays, the Sales Japan series. Thursdays, the Leadership Japan series. And every second Thursday, the Business Pro Podcaster Show. Fridays, the Japan Business Mastery Show podcast. Saturdays, Japan's top business interviews. Before we get going, today's handy Japanese phrase is Toriaizu sore de. Toriaizu sore de. Toriaizu sore de. That's enough for now. So maybe we're having a meeting, the boss wants to move on, or you want to move on, and you could just say Toriaizu sore de. Let's stop there. That's enough. Let's pull it up right there. Toriaizu sore de. Toriaizu sore de. Toriaizu sore de. Now this is episode number 568. Today we're talking about business opportunities in Japan. And this is a live recording of an interview I did with Japan Expert Insights for you, which I think captures a number of very interesting points to think about here in how to develop ourselves and our businesses in Japan. Thank you very much, Maya, and thank you, Tim, for this opportunity. I always enjoy the work that you do, and it's very valuable, I think, to share insights about Japan, particularly business. And so for me, this is my 39th year in Japan now, over 3 visits. I came in 1979, originally as a Monbusho Rugakse, a Monbusho scholar, studying Japanese, did a master's degree at Sophia at Georgia University in comparative culture, and then thought I'd become an academic, thought I'd become a professor of Japanese politics and national relations. Went back to Australia, where I'm from, to Griffith University, my home university, and started my PhD fieldwork, and completed that, came back to Japan for the second time as a Japan Foundation Fellow to do the fieldwork, and went back, started writing the thesis, completed the thesis, and then this is towards now the late 80s, and so the Japan boom was on. And I kept on getting calls, hey, we want to buy something from Japan, we want to sell something in Japan. And I started my own consulting company. And so I thought, well, I'll do this for a while, and then I'll go back to being an academic. And then I got sort of headhunted by a company called Jones Lang Wooten, which is now Jones Lang LaSalle. And they got me into business, which I've never been in before. And I quite liked it. I thought, I'll do this for a while, and then I'll go back to being an academic. And so I did that for a while. And then I saw an opportunity came up in the early 90s to open an office for Austrade in Japan. So back in the early 90s, we're talking 1992 now, as an Australian, the number of Australians who have the chance to open a brand new operation in Japan, very, very small number of people. And I thought, wow, that's a great opportunity. I'll learn a lot. So I did that. And so I ran Austrade, opened the office in Nagoya. So I learned about life outside of Tokyo, because when I was a student here, I thought that Tokyo equaled Japan. But I rapidly discovered that's quite not the case, actually. And then I spent 4 years in Nagoya. Then we're all on contract. These are contracts. My contract ended. Another contract came up to run Osaka. So I got the contract for Osaka. I ran Osaka for 4 years. And then the contract came up for Tokyo. And I got that contract, came back to Tokyo in 2001. And then I had the contract for running Japan with Austrade. But in that business, you can't stay forever. There's a limit. So my son had been born in Kobe in 2001. I wanted to stay in Japan so he could become bilingual. So I needed to stay, and I got a job with the Shinsei Bank in retail banking, which I'd not been in before. But I figured that, well, retail banking can't be too complex for the consumer. So maybe I can understand. I'd have to create products. That wasn't my job. I wound up running all the retail branches in Japan as part of the Platinum Bank division, and in the end became one of the joint heads of the bank. Before I went off to run the National Australia Bank here for 3 years, just in time for Lehman shock, which was a total nightmare in the finance industry, I have to say. And then, that sort of, I guess, joins us my view a little bit about corporate life. And I thought, well, I'm sick of working for other people. I want to work for myself. So I bought the franchise here for Tokyo and Kanagawa Prefecture for Dale Carnegie. And so I've been doing that now since 2010. So when people see the intro to this podcast, business opportunities in Japan, they may be thinking, wow, okay, market entry or market expansion or something like that. I spent 12 years doing that, and I have a lot of knowledge about that area. But I want to talk about something a little bit different today, something which is probably not so obvious, a little bit counterintuitive maybe. And that is some of the areas that we see that are lacking in Japan from a training company point of view. Because remember, we are developing people, we're developing staff to be better, we're developing companies to be better. So we're across all industries and all sizes too, startups right through to very mainstream, very large brand name companies. And we see a lot what's going on. And there are a lot of business opportunities in Japan which haven't been accessed yet because the development of people part is still, I'd say, behind in Japan, quite a long way behind. And so the business opportunities I want to talk about are how to transform yourself as a business person and also how to transform your organization, be it you're the owner of the business or you work in the business. And that's what I want to talk about because that's really the nub of it. Market entry, great, you get into the market, and then what? Okay, you're going to start up an operation in Japan, and then what? So it's more about you're on the ground here, you've got a business or you're starting a business. How do you grow it? How do you make it work? How do you make the people work? That is the nub of success in business anywhere in the world, and particularly here. And Japan has a few, I'd say, idiosyncrasies which make it a little bit special. So I want to talk about that a little bit. So basically, in business, know, like, and trust are three key words. If people don't know you, they can't buy from you. They don't like you. If they have absolutely no choice, they may buy from you. But preferably, all of us like to do business that we like. That's a natural human condition. So what makes you likable? And then the last one is trust. And this is the critical part. Now, on the no part, I gave a talk to the American Chamber Sales Committee December last year. You can find that on our website, on our YouTube channel, which is Tokyo Dale Carnegie TV. Tokyo Dale Carnegie TV. You'll see the whole talk there. I videoed it, where I talk about getting to know you part. I'm going to talk about it today. I'm going to talk about the like and trust part, because in business, like and trust are, as I say, are critical. So how do we become likable? How do we get trust? And you think, well, my natural charm, personality will be enough. Well, good luck. That's how it works out sometimes. And it usually works out with people who are just like you. So if you're a certain type of personality type, you're very comfortable with people who are the same personality type. It's the people who are totally different, they're the issue. They become a problem. Hard to communicate with them, hard to get on their wavelength, hard to understand them. That's difficult. So this big picture of Dale Carnegie behind me here is a reminder that he wrote the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is a classic. If you haven't read that book, read it. It's published in 1936. So you think, wow, that's totally out of date. Funnily enough, the human condition hasn't changed much. And the things that are problematic in that book that he addresses, same today. And I noticed with my son, like my son's 23, and I tried to impart dad's wisdom to him to sort of short circuit a few things for him, a few speed things up opportunities. No, no, Dad, you don't know what you're talking about. I know what to do. I'm going to do it my way. And I just realized with him, I said, this is why all the things that Dale Carnegie addressed at 36 are still a problem today, because we don't learn anything generationally as a human condition, the human beings. So we need to relearn these things. And so one of the things we think about there is how to be good with people. So as I say, if they're the same personality style as us, easy. It's when they're not. So what do you do? So generally speaking, we have preferences. We have preferences. So some of us might be really gung-ho driver types, time is money, go, 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 push, push, push. Where's the numbers? Show me the numbers. Where's the outcomes? I want results. We're going to take that hill. Everyone's going to die, but we're going to take the hill. That type of real driver personality. And I'm one of those people, by the way. The opposite of that person, though, is what we call an amiable. And these people, they're much more toned down, a little bit quieter. They're not so extrovert, perhaps. They're rather subdued. They like to get to know people over a cup of tea before they want to do business with you. They really want to understand who you are a little bit more. So a driver personality type like me, dealing with my direct opposite, nightmare, total nightmare. And I have to keep reminding myself, okay, Greg, slow down, go a little bit quieter, talk about the people issues a bit more, because that's their wavelength. They're innocent people. They're not assertive, but they're innocent people. Driver, not innocent people, innocent results, highly assertive. So direct opposites. So we learn to speak different languages, Japanese, English. We also learn to speak driver if you're not a driver, or speak amiable if you're not an amiable. If you speak amiable means quieter, slower, more considered around the people aspect of things. Talk about that. Now, the other way is you go analyticals. Now, these are people who love numbers to 3 decimal places at least. They love that. Proof, evidence, data, statistics. They want all that stuff. So in business, when we meet these people and we come in very high level, very macro, they're unsatisfied. They're like, what's all this fluff? Where's the proof? Show me the testimonials. Where are the numbers? Backing up what you say. So for that type of personality in business, we need to switch gears. And so they're not assertive, but they're not people-oriented either. They're very, as I say, data, statistics, proof-oriented. So we need to bring more of that part of our conversation with them. So we bring in the evidence, we bring in the proof, we bring in the numbers, we bring in the data, so that they feel, okay, I can trust this person. They seem to know what they're talking about. I can check the numbers. I can prove if they're what's saying to me is right. So that's a different language than you speak. The direct opposite of that is what we call the expressor type. So they like people, and they're very assertive, often actors, salespeople, very outgoing, love mixing with people. They like being with people. Don't like the paperwork, though. Typical salespeople. CRM, no thank you. Filling out all that stuff on the CRM, no. My job, I should be with clients. This is wasting my time. Why do I have to do this paperwork? I don't like the admin. That would be me, by the way. And so these people, they love people, and they love the big picture. So again, with analyticals, who are the direct opposite, they drive them nuts because they're big picture people, very outgoing, very buzzy, very vibey. And analyticals like, whoa, I'm getting sunburn over here. Tone that down, right? So if you're an analytical person or an amiable person dealing with an expressor, then you've got to increase the energy quite a bit. You've got to become a bit more positive about what you talk about, take a bit of a big picture view of things. Drivers don't have too much trouble because we're on that side of the assertive side. We just have to move from being numbers, outcome, KPI focused to more people focused. And for me, I switch between 3 of them. I am a driver, but if I'm doing looking at the P&L or doing some statistical analysis of business, I will move into the numbers and I will get involved in numbers. Don't particularly like it, but I will have to go there. I will go there because that's part of my job. As a trainer, and I'm a master trainer, so I teach still, as a public speaker, as a leader with staff, I have to become more people-oriented. So I move up to the people orientation, away from just the KPI outcome orientation. I become more sensitive, wanting to know about people more. I change my direction. I change my language when I'm dealing with my team. So amiable, no, I don't really ever go there unless I'm with an amiable and I have to switch gears. So my point is, and it's fairly obvious, we get on and like people who are like us. And we have ease of communication with people who are like us. So you don't have to have schizophrenic personality, not sure which one you are. I'm definitely a driver, no question about that. But I flexibly move to analytical when I need to, and I flexibly move to express when I need to, and I even go to amiable when I have to. So that's something to think about in business. How are you coming across? Are you just doing what you always do the way you like to do it? That's great. That's 1 out of 4 people going to be just like you. Maybe you need to think about that. Now, on the trust part, we found, so let me get a quick drink here. We found that there's a number of things in business that are key in building trust. Now, trust is going through, you know what you're talking about. Now, if you're in a sales role, you have to have product knowledge, you have to have understanding of the business, you have to understand the client, and you have to do your research. And today with AI, how fantastic. This is really opening up a lot of potential for us in business to have a good knowledge of clients before we meet them. LinkedIn, for example, is great. If they're on LinkedIn, understand the background of that person, looking for similarities. Maybe you went to same university, maybe you study in the same place or same town or study the same subject, or there may be crossovers somewhere there. So these are important things to know about in the sales process before you even meet the buyer. But having met the buyer, and this is where the opportunity comes in. Most salespeople around the world are not trained at all. They have to work it out themselves. In Japan, it's the same thing too. And so what you meet in Japan, your competitors who are selling here are untrained people. Here's a big opportunity, a huge opportunity. Get training for yourself to become a professional in sales. Make sure your organization is getting training on sales and become professionals as well, because you will just get that jump on the competition. And because it's so untapped here in a way, the opportunity is big for all of us to do better vis-a-vis our rivals. And one of the problems in Japan with sales is the Japanese salespeople, being not trained, don't understand the client needs. They don't ask questions. And the curious thing about that is they think because the buyer is God, they are not allowed to ask questions, so they don't ask any, so they just pitch. The problem with pitching is you don't actually know what they want. So how do you know what to pitch? You've probably got a broad product lineup. You may have different variations within the lineup. What's the angle? How do you approach that? So my point there is there's a lack of professional development in Japan in this area. It's global, but it's also particularly pronounced in Japan. Anyone who's in business, and if you're an owner, you're in sales. If you're an executive, you're in sales. If you're in the sales department, then it's clear in sales, but most of us are in sales anyway. We just don't realize it. When you're dealing with clients, getting to know what they need, understanding their requirements, absolutely critical. You need to ask questions. Now, Maya, if you wouldn't mind, could you just bring up the slide I've got there, the one on sales that I've got there, the first one, I think that comes up first. Yeah. I wrote this book pre-COVID, Japan Sales Mastery. Now, I'm not in the business of selling books, just so we're clear about that. If I want to sell books, I would write romance novels for sure, or detective series, make a lot more money. It's not about the sales of the books. It's about sales of training. And so this is a high credibility build with clients. We mainly give these out to clients. We use it as our textbook for our training. I wrote this book to help people. The previous book on sales in Japan had been written 35 years ago by actually another Australian, Roger March. He wrote a book called The Japanese Negotiator. And there'd been nothing written since then because Japan sort of went into a bit of a three decade long, I should say, missing decade. And it was off the map and everyone rushed off to China. So I wrote this book to help people. So you can take that away now. Thanks, Maya. That's available just to help you. I'm not saying I don't care if you buy the book or not, but I'm just saying it's available to get knowledge about selling in Japan. Now, another area that's very critical is being persuasive. And again, as a training company, we teach people how to be persuasive. We teach presentation skills. And what you notice is, and this is the same everywhere, people are not very good in presentation skills, public speaking skills. And I was the biggest, example of this. I was terrified of public speaking, ran away from public speaking every opportunity until I was in my early 30s. I just couldn't even think about speaking in public. Finally, I got started and I was terrible. And did I go and get training? No, I just blundered on like an idiot. Looking back, I should have got the training. I really should have realized, hey, in business, being able to present your ideas clearly, succinctly, persuasively is absolutely critical. This is something you have to master in business. Did I think like that? No. And it was only later I worked it out. So my message to everyone is, most people in business world are not very good speakers. They're not very persuasive. So the field is clear. It's open. You can get in the top 5% in business as a presenter, as a persuader, as a speaker, very easily. It's very hard to be in the top 5% of lawyers or accountants, or engineers or whatever. That's pretty tough. But as a presenter, as a persuader, you can do that because most people are terrible. Get the training. And so maybe Mayo, show the second slide if you wouldn't mind. Yeah, this is on presentation skills. I wrote this book, published it, this is during COVID from memory, on presentation skills, again, to help people, because I realized, okay, Japan is a bit special. There are plenty of books on presentation skills, but there weren't any on presenting in Japan. So I wrote this book, and the one on sales, we translated that, and we translated this one as well. So it's available in Japanese, available in English. So the point there is I'm trying to help people to become more skilled in presentation. So thank you, mate. See, all these available on Amazon. Thank you, mate. You can take that away. So the point about this is being persuasive is critical in your career. It's critical for you with clients. It's critical for you when you represent your company. Don't be like me. Don't try and work it out by yourself. Waste long periods of time. Get trained. That's what I would say. And the third one is leadership. Now, we teach leadership here, and what we notice is that, again, most Japanese managers are not leaders. They're just managers. And there's a difference between manager and leader. What's the difference? A manager, you run the machine. It's on time. It's on cost. It's on quality. Everything's humming along beautifully. That's what a manager does. Great. What does a leader do? They do all of those things, plus they set the direction for the team. They build a culture for the environment the team works in, and they build the people. So what we find in Japan is that there are mainly managers and very, very few leaders. So again, like to get to the top in leadership, you would think is going to be very difficult. Well, most people, again, they're untrained, so they don't know how to lead properly. They don't have the right perspective. So the field is wide open for people who want to get to the top and become leaders. Not everyone wants to be a leader, but if that's you, if you're leading your own company, for example, you have to be a great leader. Otherwise, you're out of business. So the point there is people are untrained, get the training. And May, if you could bring up book number 3, please.
Sure.
Yeah, this book is fresh off the presses, literally. I just got this from Amazon the other day. Finally got some physical copies here. I wrote this book on leadership in Japan. Now, there are tons of books in English on leadership, mainly for Americans in America. There are lots of books in Japanese on leadership for Japanese, but what if you're a foreigner? Where's the book for you in English? As far as I know, and Tim, you've been around a long time, May, you've been around as well. If you've ever come across a book specifically written for foreign CEOs, foreign leaders, founders on leading in Japan, let me know, because I've never found one. I've never even seen one, never even heard of one. So I wrote this book, published just now, the last couple of weeks, again, to try and help people to become better in leadership, because in business, this is a critical skill. So there's an overlap with sales ability, there's an overlap with presentations, persuasive ability, leadership ability. They overlap in different areas, but the ability to take people with you, to engage them and bring you with you on the journey, to develop them so they feel some sense of ownership in what they're doing, they feel valued in what they're doing. These are critical skills. Now, the point is, these are massive business opportunities in Japan because it's so underdeveloped here. The Japanese system, basically the on-the-job training system, has completely broken down. On-the-job training started to break down in the 80s when the keyboards turned up. when I was growing up in business, there was a whole secretarial pool of young women in those days who, and I remember high school, they went to typing class. I didn't go to typing class. I wish I had. And then they became secretaries, and bosses who were mainly men had people do the typing for them. Well, Japan had that too until the 80s when we got the keyboards, and then Japanese keyboards, and so people started to type themselves. And then also in the 90s we got the internet. So now you've got email. And so the bosses are doing their own email, and the secretaries are not doing their email anymore. They're doing it themselves. And so the whole time frame for bosses shrunk. Business just got busier, more complex, more technology, more difficulty. Their time frames have shrunk. Their ability to develop people has really gone down the hill. It's really not there anymore. So this on-the-job training, what we're getting is generation after generation after generation in Japan of managers who are not leaders passing on how to be a manager. No one's learning how to be a leader. So the opportunities in business in Japan are there. Understand the other 3 personality types who are not like you, and learn to speak their language, and you will do much better. And read the book by Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, because that really helps you with the toolkit on how to put that into practical application. Second one is business sales is a critical skill. Don't work it out by yourself. Get training. Speed things up. Persuasion power, critical skill in business. Don't work it out by yourself. Speed things up. And then finally, leadership. Leadership, there are some key things here in Japan you need to know. Well, get the training. My book is going to be a help for you as a resource. Have a look at that. These things will help you succeed in business in Japan. And I'm going to stop there, Maya and Tim, and open up for any questions that people may have.
Thank you. Well, yes, wonderful. Thank you very much for this presentation. We already have a couple of questions on LinkedIn, so I'll read them out to you. And I expect some more questions from Clubhouse a little bit later. But before we continue, please allow me to do the introduction of our other sponsor, who is House Inc. And House Inc. Does renovation of homes and also office spaces, and also they do reconstruction as well. And in this, they also operate in Tokyo and Yokohama and offer bilingual services. Once again, the contact details will be shared with you in the description of the YouTube video and also at the end of this podcast. You can contact Hana or Rushisawa Howell there. House Inc. is the place to go if you need bilingual services in reconstruction and renovation of your house or your home. And that's it for the moment. We'll dive into the questions and answers session from now on. So, Dr. Story, we have first a question from Joe Baz on LinkedIn, and his question is, from an online branding perspective, for example, your LinkedIn profile, how do you position yourself in a way that is most effective, given that your positioning in person requires flexibility of contrary personality types?
Okay, so the question is about when I'm trying to brand myself and appeal to all different types of personality types, how do I do that through a static medium like LinkedIn?
Like LinkedIn.
Well, yeah, or Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or TikTok or anything else, because I'm on all of those.
Yes.
Well, basically, I cannot cover all 4 personality types on a static medium like that. That's impossible for anyone. However, I try to make it very clear what we do. And so you'll notice that my name is not Dr. Greg Story. My name is Dr. Greg Story, and it talks about the things we teach, leadership, presentation, sales, that type of thing. And I try to put as much credibility into my LinkedIn profile as I can, because people check us out these days in business. Who are we dealing with? What is their background? Who is this person? They look you up. And what do they find? I mean, LinkedIn started as a type of grand resume site for people looking for jobs, but it's really gone way beyond that now. There's still some of that, but it's not like it used to be. So people will go in, they'll see, okay, well, this guy's been around for a long time in Japan. He's published 3 bestsellers. He's an expert in these particular areas, what we train in. And then if they get into my posts, they're going to see thousands thousands of blogs, and they're going to be on these subjects: leadership, sales, presentations, over and over and over again. And they can read those blogs, or they can watch the videos that are attached there, and they can make a judgment. Is this the guy for us? Is this the type of training organization that's interesting for us? Is there something here we can get value from? So the best I can do is to put out authentically who we are, what we do, and then from a credibility point of view, if the buyer of our services look at that and think, well, yeah, this looks credible, I want to know more, I'd like to get in touch with these people, then we can have that personal conversation, and then I can get a sense of who they are, and then I can adjust. If they're very, hey, how much is it going to cost, how much is it going to take, who's going to be involved, driver type, I know how to respond to that. If they're a bit more vague about what they want, they're not quite sure, a bit hesitant, they might be an analytical, they might be an amiable type, I need to switch gears and adjust my presentation mode so that they feel comfortable. Now, that's in the actual opportunity to get to speak with people. But before that, on a static medium, no. Although, having said that, we've got 2,500 videos on YouTube. We're putting up, I have 3 TV shows a week. I have 6 blogs a week, so six text blogs and 3 TV shows. I have 6 audio podcasts a week, so 6 podcasts, blogs, and then 3 TV shows. So if you go and look at the TV shows, I'm presenting, of course, but you get a sense. Or you go on our website and you look at me giving speeches or being interviewed, you can get more of a sense of who I am before even meeting me, because it's all out there. I put it out there for people to digest and then make an assumption, judgment about whether I'm the type of person they want to get to know better, or they want to work with, or they want to give their people to be trained by. So that's my objective there. So thank you for your question.
Well, thanks for that and for the answer. Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what I wanted to... Oh, just a moment, please. Oh, I am looking forward... Okay, here we go.
Yeah, okay. We dropped out there for a bit, but we're back.
We're back, yes. Okay. Thank you for this.
Oh, so you're back. Okay, sorry.
Okay, so we've got more people in Clubhouse and Yuka is there as well. Apologies for this technical detail. So I have a couple of questions to you as well, Dr. Story. So you talked about different personalities in business and how we need to, to be flexible. And my first question is this flexibility? So basically, you were talking that flexibility is important in business and how you have to adjust depending on the counterpart, the person we want to persuade, and so on. But is this flexibility learned? Is it an acquired skill? Do you think that for some people it is something that they already have?
Yeah, the question is being able to adjust to different personality styles a learned skill or something you're born with? I would say it's something that for most people, they learn it. But some people, maybe they are learning it on the way through as they grow up. They're certain personality style. Like I noticed with my son, he's much better with people than I have ever been in my entire life. And maybe that's just a product of his upbringing. And so, he's doing that very, very well. So for him, maybe it's not a learned thing. He's learned it as he's grown up. But I think it's where you get to a point in your life where you realize that in business, you meet certain people and you think, okay, I can't really get on the wavelength of this person. This is quite difficult. I can't get with them, can't get their vibe here. What do you do? And this is where understanding, okay, are they a really detailed person? Maybe I'm not being detailed enough in my presentation. Are they a real time is money person? Maybe I'm rambling. Maybe I'm not getting to the point. Maybe I'm thinking I shouldn't be too pushy or direct because that's going to upset people. Drivers never get upset by that. Time is money. Get to the point. Tell me what you want, and then get out of my office. That's the mentality. They're happy with that. Other people, big picture, maybe I'm just killing them with detail. I'm just micro detailing them to death and they're just dying. They want to go macro. And they're amiable types, calm, build a trust first. Let's get to know each other. Once you understand who you're dealing with, and you may not get it perfectly right, But generally speaking, there's a divide. You've got the sort of assertive people on one side and the less assertive people on the other side. Even if you only get that part right and go less assertive or more assertive, you're pretty much there. And if you can go to even further levels, even better. So I think it can be learnt. Some people naturally may have it. I certainly did not. When I read Dale Carnegie's book, How to Influence and Influence People, I recognized myself on every page, not in a good way. And the problem there was, I read the book, but I didn't know how to translate what was in the book into behavior change. And that's where we have a course called the Dale Carnegie course, which actually does that. And when I finally did that course, I went, oh, geez, I wish I'd done this many years earlier. It would have saved me a lot of heartache. So it can be learned. It certainly can be learned. And I think awareness is a big part of it. Once you're aware that I'm not quite getting it with this person, you start to think, why is that? And then listen to them. How are they speaking? What are they saying? How are they saying it? And then you start to realize, I'm too energetic, or I'm not energetic enough, or I'm too detailed, or I'm not detailed enough. And then you can just slightly adjust how you're explaining things. You're the same personality, but you just adjust the communication piece to something that they like. That's the choice you can make. You can say, no, I'm going to stand on my rights. I have rights. You have to be like me. You have to do it the way I do it. Terrific. Go for that. Good luck. Let me know how that works out for you in business. All right, Amble, we come back from the break. Today's show is brought to you by our public courses, but we also do custom in-house programs. We do them in Japanese and we do them in English, do them in our super safe classroom. We do them live online. Our show today is being brought to you by, on the 24th of August, our Dale Carnegie course, 12-week version. On the 12th and 13th of September, high impact presentations. Also on the 13th of September, doing another version, 12 weeks long, of the Dale Carnegie course. Our website is www.dale-carnegie.co.jp. So that's www.dale-carnegie.co.jp. You can email me at greg.story@dalecarnegie.com. So that's greg.story, STORY, at dalecarnegie.com. If you like learning by watching videos, then we have over 2,300 there for you at Tokyo, Japan, Dale Carnegie TV on YouTube. We release 3 shows every week on YouTube. The Cutting Edge Japan Business Show, that's the premier business show in Japan, every Monday, Tokyo time. Fridays, we have the Japan Business Mastery Show, and on Saturdays, we release Japan's top business interviews, where I interview leaders from SMEs right up to the corporate captains of industry on one topic, leading in Japan. Now, every second Thursday, we release the Business Pro Television. Don't forget to grab my business best-selling books on Japan on Amazon. Japan Sales Mastery, which is Saegyo in Japanese, Japan Business Mastery, and Japan Presentations Mastery, or in Japanese, Anata mo Presen no Tachijin. My other books include Stop Wasting Money on Training, which in Japanese is Training de Okane o Muri ni suru wa yamemashou. And my just released new book is Japan Leadership Mastery. And all are available on Amazon.
I agree with you, Greg, that it can be learned, because it's just in my own situation, moving to Japan from a country so different than my own. The culture was so different. And I'm not just talking about me, I'm talking about anybody who moves to another country, but especially Japan, because if it's much different from your own, and then you've stayed there for a long time and adjusted, by definition, you have developed the flexibility, at least to adapt to the culture you're in. So in that sense, being thrown into this situation, again, for anybody, and being able to adapt and have longevity there, I think is kind of proof that with the right personality and the right situation, you can definitely learn to be flexible. So I think that's
it's
a
good
point.
Illustration, Tim. That's a very good point. Thank you.
Yes, and still, I would say that once again, depending on the type of personality, some people never get to the point of that awareness, which is a pity. But also, it is not to say that they're unsuccessful. Obviously, they find success in different ways. Okay. And then my next question to you is about, once again, the types of personalities. So you mentioned, that of course people are different. We're still the same human beings, but depending on our personal, well, let's say personal character, background, and so on and so on, we come across as either boisterous, drivers, or not just that, but also people who adjust much more easily than others. But have you found that these types of personalities sometimes are influenced or impacted by their cultural background? And do they
Okay.
present, themselves in different ways depending on the cultural background?
Yeah. So the question is your choice of style preference based on your cultural background? Yeah, I think it absolutely is. I mean, I grew up in Australia. It's a very macho culture for men, a very competitive culture for men there. You got to be able to take it. You got to be able to hand it out to survive when I was growing up. So you become stronger, tougher as a result. Now, you come to, and Tim made this point about coming to a country like Japan, which is quite soft and
Right.
harmony is highly valued, and being boisterous and vigorous and pushy and my way or the highway, no thank you. Most people can't be bothered dealing with you because no, they don't like that. So I think yes, it is a product of your background or your home life as well, how your parents are, how you're educated, all those things. Now I know myself when I'm there's a particular lady here. She's an HR person. She works for a very big company. A very soft person, gentle, very soft person. And so, when I meet her the first time, it's like, oh, wow, she's very soft and quiet. I'm go, go, go. I'm upbeat. I'm positive. I got to tone that down because I'm going to be overpowering for her. And she's not going to feel comfortable with me. And she's the HR person. She's the gateway for me to bring my training business to her company. So I better start reflecting on what she likes and how she is. Now, I will never be maybe as calm and as soft and as quiet as she is. That's her, she is. But I can be a lot less vigorous, boisterous than I am normally and tone it down a little bit more and drop the voice a little bit more and concentrate more on the people part of things and listen to her more. And I mean, in sales, if you're doing all the talking, that's a big mistake straight away. Anyway, you're pitching. Hopefully, you're asking questions and shutting up and listening for the answers very, very carefully, and listening also particularly for how they relate the answer to you. What's the tone of voice? How do they come across? How do they communicate? Then you get an idea of which type they are, and then you can adjust. So yes, definitely, yes. I think product of our backgrounds, all of us. But again, like Tim said, when I came to Japan, it was so different to me. I was 25 when I got here. I was pretty much formed in Australia, got here, everything's so different. Weather's crap all the time. I come from sunny Queensland, Brisbane, fantastic. And it was like, wow. And then so many people and language barrier. And I mean, just a nightmare. But I learnt the language. I learnt the customs. I adjusted myself. And today, I think, thanks to Japan, I'm a much better person. I'm a more rounded person than I
Right.
was when I first got here. I willed the Japanese weather to improve for the first 2 years. It didn't go.
Well, that's it. You have to teach me how to do that.
I tried to will it to be better, but it didn't improve. The summers were dreadful, the winters were cold. Spring was
Yeah.
beautiful, autumn was okay, but so I found that didn't work. But I adjusted, and I have adjusted. I think I am a much better person. And my wife's Japanese, and I noticed a difference living with her. That her sense of consideration for
Yeah.
others
Mhm.
much higher than the average
Yes.
Australian, much
Yeah.
higher, and
Yeah.
uh,
Ditto for Americans. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, the ability
It's
to
the
blend
same.
in a bit more, much higher. So I've learned a lot from her, actually. To be honest,
Yeah.
I've learned a lot
I,
from her.
I think we all have from our spouses, for sure, for our Japanese spouses.
Yeah.
one of my, I don't want to say struggles, but it was a process, is when I got here, again, you're in shock and you have no idea what's going on. Nothing makes sense to you. And then you gradually start figuring out how to adjust. And in my case, I kind of overcompensated and I got too Japanese there for a while. And then, I went back to my home country. I readjusted, recalibrated. And to me, the process has been, how do I adjust? For example, you use the word tone down, right? Which is a good word. How do I adjust without losing my authenticity? How do I make adjustments enough to connect, but not so much that it's not me anymore?
Mhm.
And again, I've coined that your cross-cultural sweet spot. So it's been an ongoing process. I've come a long way, but I'm still adjusting, but I'm close, Is that just me and my imagination thinking that way? Or can you relate to that thinking as well about finding that sweet spot?
Yeah, so the question is around having your authenticity as who you are, yet being flexible in how you communicate with other people. And I think the key there is I'm talking about communication. I'm not
Right.
talking about values. I'm not saying we have to change our value set to suit the other person and be like them. What I'm saying is they have a preference in communication of how they like to interact with others. I'm saying work on that, but keep your own value set. So for me, I have my values. Now, I will not compromise those values for anybody. Otherwise, what's the point of having a set of values? So, well, when we're in business, sometimes we're asked to compromise our values for money. And I draw a line under that.
Yes.
I draw a
Yeah, of
line under
course.
that. I say, no, I'm not going to do that. I give up on that money because that's compromising the values I believe in. And most people have similar values, so it's not that big a stretch to sort of fit in with most people. But I would say, Tim, the authenticity part is your values, who you are and what you believe in, and how you think about the world and how you think about other people and how you want to interact with them. Now, how you communicate that, the means in which you make that happen, that's where the dial might be turned up or down on the energy level. It might be turned up or down on the detail level, just to be more in sync with how that person receives information. Where I said before, that lady, the HR lady, she's extremely soft. If I came in with, hey, Dale Carnegie, it's fantastic, and we've got this and we got that, man, she'd be getting sunburn straight away. Like, whoa, turn that guy off. He's just overpowering. I can't deal with him. I've lost her. I've lost her completely. So I know by being flexible with myself, same value set, being flexible with myself, and I just change my tone of voice, my loudness, and a little bit softer with her. She feels more comfortable. And I think if I'm the seller and they're the buyer, I should make the buyer feel comfortable. That would be a fairly obvious thing. But a lot of people in sales get that around the wrong way. They think the buyer should adjust to them. It doesn't work like that. But
Right.
the value set doesn't change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an important point.
Oh,
But again,
yes.
yes,
Oh,
okay. Okay, Yuka, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm kind of looking at the clock and I said, ooh, time flies when you're
Okay.
having a good time, right?
Yes.
Hi, Dr. Story. I'm coming from the clubhouse, so you have no idea how I look, which is intentional. But anyway, so it's a great presentation. I learned, and I love the way you present it. Of course, you're a trainer. You always summarize a question to the audience. I said, and I thought, okay, I should do this too. Anyway, my question, you just touched on, like a lost or missed 3 decades, which Japan has lived through. Oh, by the way, people get sunburned from me too. So anyway, although I'm Japanese. I listen to the corporate presentation a lot. That's a presentation to the investor audience. And I noticed a difference. The management, grew up in Showa era or Heisei era. There are distinct difference in the presentation style. Heiwa managers are more direct. they don't use the fluffy words. So when you are training different generation of Japanese managers, and then also you talked about, Japanese idiosyncrasies. So along with that line, how do you adjust for the generation difference when you're addressing to Japanese management? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Yuko-san. Your question is about how do we adjust for different personality types, different generational types in the classes when we're teaching presentation skills. Well, basically, if you are clear, it doesn't matter what generation you are, what nationality you are, that's a good thing to be clear in communication. If you're concise, doesn't matter what generation you are, what nationality you are, that's a good thing to be concise, because a lot of people ramble on, you're not quite sure what the point is, and if there is a point, it gets submerged by a whole bunch of other points. Things like selecting out keywords in sentences to accentuate with a little bit more power, or even dropping the power out like a conspiratorial whisper. Both of these, strength or no strength, both work to highlight keywords. Now, most people, they speak at the same level all the time, so there's no differentiation of value in the words in a sentence. They're all given exactly the same democratic treatment. They're all treated equally. It's not a democracy. Some words have more value, more power, more impact, more importance than others, and we need to highlight those words, as I say, with strength in or strength out. So that's one thing I find. And Japanese language, as you know, is a monotone language, and so Japanese often will complain to me, look, this is all very well for you foreigners. You've got modulation in your languages. We're Japanese. We've got no modulation. We've got this monotone. And I always like to relate when I went to Jochi studying Japanese, and being a typical foreigner, I'm speaking like, "Watashi wa eki ni ikimasu." I'm up and down all over the place like this. And Yamada sensei saying, "Story-san, fratto, fratto, fratto." Flatten it out. Stop with all that modulation, right? I never forget that.
Right, right.
And so, but then they say, well, it's a monotone language, so we're bound to put people to sleep. And that's true. Monotone language does put people to sleep. That's why in a Japanese audience, never, ever turn the lights off. Never do that. Always leave the lights on. Anyway, I say to people who are Japanese, you have two levers, though. You have the lever of strength, so strength in or strength out. And you have the lever of speed. Speed it up, slow it down. Both of those levers provide enough vocal variation to keep an audience with you. So if you've got good vocal variation, and therefore also using that to hit keywords, to highlight them in a sentence, if you're using pauses too, is also very good, because often when people are speaking, they get a bit nervous, they get very quick, and we lose track of what they're saying, and the key points get sort of jumbled up. Key point, stop, pause, let people digest that. Pause doesn't have to be long, 3-4 seconds is tons. Keep going, next key point, stop, let them digest that. And that gaps, that really highlights what's in the middle, which most people don't do. They just have one continuous speaking pattern. So pausing is good, the strength in and out, the speed in and out is good, being clear, being concise. These transcend nationalities, they transcend generations, because these are the core elements of having good communication skills. Now, you can become very eloquent with your big vocabulary or not. Most people don't need a massive vocabulary, long as they're clear in what they're saying. And that means reducing down the amount of words it takes to say the same point. And the biggest problem is you make a key point, and then you want to add another one, and another one, and another one, and another one. So the first key point, which is the major point, is now being diluted by all these sub-points. This happens a lot in sales. Here's the key point about buying the product or service, and then add. Dilution. Leave the key point there, let the audience absorb it, let them come back with questions until there's been a little pause. Then you can move on to the second most high priority point. So the techniques of communication, the techniques of presentation skills are the same. We teach the High Impact Presentations program, an excellent program, all around the world, 35 languages. It's taught exactly the same everywhere, because clarity, conciseness are identical needs everywhere. So Yuko, the answer to your question is, if you work on, or if they work on those things when they're speaking. And also one thing about Japanese too, one idiosyncrasy is volume, voice volume. Often too quiet, don't have enough presence in the room because they're not using enough voice projection. They're mistaking having a conversation chat level of volume when you're speaking to presenting. It's a different ba. as you say in Japanese. It's a different location. Presenter, you're in this role. Chat, you're in this role. Different role, different volumes required. So you need to project your voice. You need to have more presence in the room when you're speaking in public than you do just having a chat with your mate. So there are some key things. And that book I wrote on Presentations Mastery, I go through in great detail every possible thing I could think of to help people think about how to present. Everything, how to breathe, how to stand, what to do with your hands, how to design the works. I try to put as much into it as I could. So I hope that helps people. Thank you for your question, Yuko.
Well, thank you, because people always remind me, you can breathe before you pass out. So I have to be very careful.
Yeah,
but you said that you sort of train like foreigners who are managing Japanese subordinate. Is that right? Is that what you said?
Well, we do both. A lot of multinational companies here are run by foreign expats, but 99% of the staff are Japanese. So 95% of the training that we deliver is in Japanese, right? But the decision maker might be a foreigner, or they might switch us to the Japanese HR and we go and talk to them. So we teach expats, we teach Japanese, we teach individuals, companies. We have in-house, we have public courses. We have them in English, we have them in Japanese, we have them online like this, we have them in our super safe classroom. We've got every part of the spectrum on how you could deliver training, so we can cover off everybody's needs.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I was asking because there might be you said, all the good presentations are the same in nature, but you may, throw in some sort of tips to foreign managers who are going to manage Japanese folks. So maybe I'm trying to, cheat here. Just
yeah, I would say, I'd say the kick you're thinking about there, I think, is it sounds a bit counterintuitive, but listening, not talking. I think for foreign managers, they want to tell everybody everything and, start shooting out orders and whatever. That's not the point. They need to do a lot more listening to what people are telling them and listen for what's not being said. That takes time to get to that point, but that's something should be aimed at. Now, in terms of presentations, I think for foreigners, nature of the society is they're much more combative in business. It's much more required that you step out of yourself and you have, more oomph in your presentation. So that comes to them more easily. But what we also try is to teach them how to also have some crescendos, but also some lows as well. So it's not just crescendo, crescendo, crescendo. Have some soft parts as well. So there's a variety and a balance in your presentation, so you appeal to a broader range of people. And so, the other part is, again, telling stories in any communication is powerful. I told that story before about the very softly spoken HR lady that I met here. So you can, I could just say, oh, well, some people are quite soft. Well, it doesn't quite give you enough pizzazz to that. So you bringing out storytelling is very, very important. And numbers are very dry, but there are stories behind the numbers. And when you bring the story to the number, we remember the whole thing. You just tell me the number, I may not remember it. So wrapping numbers up, concepts up in stories is a very effective communication piece that all of us can use and be benefited from. So I really encourage people to work more on their storytelling as well.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I was going to give a friend that exact same advice. Take those numbers and wrap them into a story.
Yeah,
because that's what people want to hear. And you mentioned, hopefully we could talk about this on a future podcast, but Maya and I are very interested in Japanese leadership, and I've studied Japanese leaders. Those were my initial mentors, the ones who were good, some really good leaders, right? And I read Inamori-san's book about the JAL turnaround. And it was easy to relate to him because I come from a manufacturing background, and that was his background, right? And one of the things he said, like, it resonates with you, said, listen, right? And part of listening is developing relationships with people. And one of the things he did was he acknowledged up front that when he has a staff meeting, that his Japanese subordinates are not going to be completely forthcoming and honest and show him their honne. So he would stay late at work, and he would call certain people over to his desk, and he'd open up a beer at work, and he would have a beer with them to get them to relax and just to talk to them, and he would listen to them, and then he would get a lot of very good information through it. Now, I'm not suggesting you should drink at work. I'm just saying this is one technique that Inamori-san used in his leadership style to listen and also to get to know people, to build relationships. So I thought that was an interesting approach.
Yeah, very good insight. Yeah, very good. Very good.
Yes. I also think that although these, the socialization nomikais after working hours in Japan they are disliked by foreign expatriates a lot here in Japan, but I think that they serve that specific purpose. So to build relationships, right? Because we know that the Honnen Tatemai, this paradigm here is really strong. So people do need to loosen up, and usually a drink or two help. And I can see how people do talk after they have had a beer or two. And I would say that yes, in terms of cultural implications or the cultural background, it's very important that we follow what the locals find that works for them. So
Interesting enough, Maya, the younger generation are not so interested in going on the company travel tour or going for drinks after work. They want to go home or go to the gym or go out or spend time with their family. So you talked about generations before. Yes, I see that generational change. So what that means, though, is that while you're in the workplace, you have to develop those skills of communication and being able to have a heartfelt conversation with someone where they're comfortable with you to open up and share, and the trust is built that they feel they can actually tell you what's really going on. That becomes even more important as that sort of non-communication is sort of closed out a little bit now for that younger generation. What do we do about these young people who are going to be the future? So I think the things I've talked about in terms of understanding where they're coming from, what personality style they are, how they like to be talked to, being a better communicator, clear, concise, listening skills, all these things we've talked about, if you sort of bring those together, probably the most important audience for that is going to be this younger generation who are different and they're in a different world, and so we have to adjust ourselves now for this group who we can't apply the template that was successful before.
I agree with you, but also maybe here we need to throw in the new skill of listening online as well, because very very few people actually give that's the, what do you call that? It's not social listening. What, I don't remember the term in English, but it is for example, a lot of people comment online and young people comment online. And if you read through those comments, you get a feel of what they really appreciate, what they value, where they come from. And this is something that has not been developed as a skill yet. And I think that also when we talk about corporations, most of the corporations are not there yet either. So maybe that's another thing, that we need to pay more attention on the way forward as we start to communicate or need to communicate more with the younger generations that are entering the workforce.
Well, you see what happens with the phone. People are engrossed in their phone. And if you get an actual phone call today to your landline, you almost fall off your chair with shock because it's such a rare event. Oh my God, what's that noise? What's ringing? Or people are more inclined now to text each other than phone each other. Now I'm very old school. I like to ring people and get an instant answer. I don't want to text and then wait and get the text back, and I ring straight away. So, but we're seeing that generationally, that young people are text oriented, screen oriented, and their basic communication skills are not being developed in the organizations. I said before, that on-the-job training has basically broken down. So where are they going to get trained, and how do they improve? And how, as leaders, how do we help them to improve as well? So I think our job as leaders has become even more difficult. And the other thing too about the phone is, I've got one right here. This damn thing, this is the biggest competitor for us now as public speakers. If you're at any event, even if the speaker is good, people got the phones out and they're doing something on the damn phone. They're not listening.
Yeah.
And if you're even slightly boring,
Right.
your message is now going into the void because they've stopped listening to you and they're on the internet and they're checking their email or they're doing something. They're not listening to you at all. So we talk about this in our presentation classes. We are now facing the most difficult period in human existence to be presenters and be persuaders. It has never been harder, and it's not going to get any easier either because those microscopic attention spans are making it difficult. So again, coming back to clear, concise storytelling, very critical. People get into the story, they will stick with you and get the message. You just start coming at them with dry stuff, they're gone.
Yep.
So I think,
Yep.
we are in an inflection point here as far as communication goes. And it's not inflecting in the right direction, if you ask me. It's just making the whole thing much more difficult. So again, it comes back to my point. If you're working it out by trial and error, good luck. Because the whole thing is advancing faster than you can advance yourself through trial and error. You're always going to be so many steps behind the 8-ball here. It's not going to work. You need to get help.
Yeah, indeed. Well, thank you very much for this. We're past 9 o'clock. It's time for us to let everybody who listened to us and tuned in to go about their day. Probably start working as well, because, that's the time when most of the companies start working. To you, Dr. Story, there is a greeting in Clubhouse from Mr. Yoshitaka Tori. He says, long time no see. It's nice to see you. So thank you very much for being here with us. And before we close again, of course, as Tim said, I hope that we can continue this conversation and dive into, subsequent and topics, that are also very relevant to this time and day. To everybody who listened to us, if you haven't followed Dr. Greg Story on LinkedIn, please connect with him and follow him there. So that's it for the moment. Thanks a lot. And we're looking forward to seeing you again next time. Have a good day.
Thank you, Maya. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for joining the Leadership Japan series. If you found the program useful, then tell your family, friends, and colleagues. Don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast. You can contact me at greg.story@dalecarnegie.com. Our website is www.dale-carnegie.co.jp. Until the next episode, take what you thought valuable, put it into action, because idea application is what makes winners winners. So be one of them. Remember, I'm in your corner, your go-to guy for soft skills training in Tokyo, committed to your success here in Nippon.